Farm tour this way. My name is Mark. Welcome to my little slice of heaven. We've been on this property now about 7 years. I don't have any farming in my background. In fact, I used to be a contractor for the phone company. We sold our contracting business and I decided to get into farming, which was a pretty crazy thing to do. I spent my retirement trying to figure out how to grow food in the valley, and we've done a pretty good job at it. This is our compost tea brewer. My chore here is we actually make all of our own fertilizer on the property. Nutrient density is the key to our food. Since I am only a 3-acre farm, we grow pretty weird food. We can't really compete with commodity crops like corn or oranges or anything like that. We grow a ton of vegetables. We've planted 425 trees on the property. We'll probably plant another 100 this fall. I do a lot of biodynamics, which is what you're seeing here. We're actually using vortexing, which is what's going on inside these tanks here. As you can see, the way the water has been spinning, it's spinning in a right-hand turn, which actually builds energy into the compost tea. We are building energy with the right spin, and the left spin, you're expelling energy. So we build the energy in here. This is hooked up to our well. We've been very blessed. We have a well here. We'll run this system probably for like 3 days. pH is my key to find out if we have living microbial life in our tea. So once we have a good activity, the pH will drop. Water now is about 7.8. 2 or 3 days, we'll get it down into the 5s, which is really ideal for us, so we can get that back onto the gardens. Then when we spin this back onto the gardens, it spins it the other way, which is releasing energy. So my ultimate goal here, and has been for the last 15 years, and this will be the mantra, I'll be testing you on this, is that we feed the soil, we don't feed the plants. So you'll notice there's compost on one end of this place to the other. The people are under the belief that Arizona soils are horrible to grow food, and that's just not true at all. It's packed with mineral, it just needs organic material. And we are so blessed because we have 300 growing days a year, where the rest of the world is around 150 or 180 days. So we got double the growing here. And of course the brutal summers. It's been a really late Indian summer, so we've taken a lot of abuse these last couple of weeks with the heat. You can see our banana trees are under huge stress from the heat. Usually this time of year they're nice and perky, and we follow the moon a lot here. So we have the solstice and the equinox. And the equinox, which we just went through, I remineralize our soil. A lot of people don't understand plants need minerals, and if you grow so much plants like we do year-round, you're going to pull all that mineral out of the soil. So you need to remineralize your soil on a regular basis for your plants if you want to continue to grow nutrient-dense food. So this is what I have behind you here in these bags. We do use a bunch of different soil mixes, which we don't have here. The desert doesn't have wood, so I've got to bring the wood in from the outside. This is a product called biochar. Okay, and this is organic waste, which is really, really a big deal these days. This actually comes out of a lumber mill up north, and we love it for our soil. It's one of our base products that we put down: biochar, zeolite, which I'll show you later, and pumice. And the pumice helps us break up the clay pot. Most of you that have gardens here know that your soils are rock hard from compaction. So the biochar doesn't go away, but it's also home to bacteria and microbial life. This is so nice and porous that everything will grow in it, and we love mixing in biochar as much as possible. So I import this down from northern Arizona. It's fairly inexpensive. It's more expensive to truck it down here, but this works perfect with pumice. And then there's another product called zeolite that we use. All of that is basically our bedrock for our microbial life. This is the mineral that we're using, which is mostly silica. It's got a ton of molasses in it, but it's got 25 different minerals that all plants need. So now this stuff will kind of melt with us during the seasons. So I try and get it down as much as possible. It is fairly expensive, so I can't do it all the time. And we call this Crater Lake Minerals. All of this is coming out of Eugene, Oregon. This is humus. This is humic. Can I borrow your hands? Look at how dark this is. This is black gold. That is what we're making our tea out of. It's also very, very good to spread in your garden beds too. The black soil is what we're always aiming at to get here. I used to have an office in Nebraska, and I was always so jealous of how black their soil was. I came from Oregon where it was clay and it was that brown, and the brown plate is here too. But I'd never been around this kind of stuff. This is all redwood forest, redwood bark. It's a beautiful mix to work into your soils, which is ultimately what you're trying to do. So most of this redwood chip here comes from our neighbors that have horses. And we ran across the guy when we first moved here. He had a little bobcat and he was cleaning out their horse pens every week. And he would take it to the dump and it would cost him $140 at the dump. And it's this beautiful, expensive cedar chip, which we don't get here. So we kind of said, why don't you just dump it here and save the $140 and don't tell anybody. So it's been really good. Again, we are using somebody else's waste, like the biochar, which is a waste product from a lumber mill. As farmers, we had what's called the food rescue program, where I was getting wheat, spent wheat from the breweries, spent coffee from the coffee bars, and mixing all that together into our soils to make this really great killer living compost. For many, many years, we ran all of the kitchens. We were doing 31 restaurants, and we would pick up all of their lettuces, all of their greens out of their kitchens that they were throwing away, and then we would throw it in our compost pile that we are constantly rotating. Now we've gone through the summer, which was a very brutal one, and pretty much we pulled all the broken, dead everything down and hauled it in the back. What we'll do is I'll bring in a crew and we'll get a chipper. It'll take us like 2 or 3 days and we'll chip all that stuff down and then mix up all the compost. So we're really fortunate here because we grow a lot of mushrooms. Part of the tour will be our mushroom box. And we grow mushrooms in these bags. And when the bags are spent, when they've grown what they're gonna grow, we'll then take those spent bags into the compost pile, bury them, and that compost will reignite, give them a new food base, and we'll get this beautiful roots, white roots of mycelium growing through, and then that compost gets spread onto the gardens. And that's every time we redo a garden. So our system is small. I can't say it's scalable, but it's replicable. We can do this setup all over Phoenix. We can take these little 3 and 5 acre plots like mine. We're feeding over 100 people a week. We're producing 1,000 pounds of vegetable out the door every single week of the year without stop. We don't stop. Choosing the minerals that you're going to use on your farm that's going to go into your food, you've got to be super picky. You can't go to Home Depot and get a quality product that's going to give you what you're looking for, or to trust anyway. The Scott's mineral, all that stuff that's sold there is pretty much junk. A lot of it is human waste that coming out of the sewage that they're turning into compost. So it's super dangerous in today's world. We do soil testing, and then we also do a Brix test, which is a nutritional test of our individual plants during the week. Brix is a test of sugar, and there's a symbiotic relationship between mineral and sugar in all plants. The higher the sugar, the higher the mineral content, which means it's more nutrient dense. I made a promise to myself and my team a long time ago. We're not here for quantity, we're here for quality. And I've got a crew of cancer patients that are now have hitched onto our wagon that have taken that left-hand turn away from, the oncology and doing all of the chemical poisoning, and they've gone to food, but they can't find nutrient-dense food in a grocery store because it's too old. So everything you buy from us has been harvested the day before you're going to take it home, which is going to give you the best of everything. Anything that's more than 3 or 4 days after it's been harvested is dead. I mean, all your vitamin C is completely depreciated out of the thing. So unless it's been quick frozen, which is when it's saved, or freeze dried, another way to save the nutritional vitamins, but eating it raw is actually the best way to get it, especially with any of the leafy greens.
As an independent team of filmmakers, we love producing documentaries for artisans of all trades, honoring skill, passion, and determination. So whether you're a garage baker, homegrown mycologist, backyard farmer, or off-grid homesteader, send us a message and share your story with the world.
Banana trees are very unique for the desert. We grow banana trees not for bananas, but we actually grow them for the pups or the babies. We started with our bananas here, we had about 19, and now we've got like 250 of them. And you'll see that they all grow in a crown, but our ultimate goal here is not to grow bananas, but to grow the pups and sell it as a nursery plant. We've sold over 550 banana plants last year to everybody that wants to put one by their pool. Great shade trees. They will give you bananas. It's an ice cream or it's like a little banana, but they are definitely sensitive to too much heat and too much cold. On a good banana year for us, this whole road all the way down will have a canopy all the way across the top. It's really very cool. This is our old aquaponics system. I built this probably 12 years ago at another farm. We pulled it out of the junk pile and I'm going to rebuild it again. This is when I really fell in love with farming at the very beginning, where we actually use fish, which those are the tanks for the fish. The nitrogen that comes off the ammonia off the fish in the nitrogen cycle, and then we run the water through these troughs, and I grow plants and flowers in these troughs, and the troughs will actually filter the water back again for the fish. So we're using the same gallon of water over and over and over again to harvest the crops. It's really crazy how fast the food grows. And then I'm going to tie it into our duck ponds too. I could be arrested for hoarding if you guys saw all the junk I have hidden behind all of the fences and everything here. And I don't know if any of you guys are the handyman around the house. You can't find something, so you go to the store and buy one, and then a week later you find two of them. It's that way here too. We lose everything, and then we got to go buy another one. So this is part of that, like rediscovering what we have stashed away and put up. So hopefully I'll have a big party every year in the spring, and we'll have all of this up and running so that you can see it. I'm going after the flower market. I'm not going to grow food in this, and that's why I'm connecting it to the duck pond. The duck pond is beautiful, high nitrogen water, but it's also a warm-blooded critter, so I'm not able to grow food out of duck waste without taking the risk of E. coli. But flowers sell like hotcakes. I can argue with people at the market for 25 minutes on an $8 dozen of eggs, and then there'll be a little pot of flowers right next for a 20 spot, and it's gone without a question asked. This is our sugar shack in construction. We're super big on honeybees here. Right now we've got 5 hives working. We're going to build it up to 10. We'll have a full-blown apiary. Our honey has just turned out superb. To us, honey is a medicinal product completely. Here's one of the gardens we're currently working right now. Now remember, you guys, we got to have food. For me to plant a garden and have it all get ripe in one day or at one time, I'll have 4,000 pounds of squash and no place to sell it. So not only is production in the mind of the small farmer, but sales is key. There's no reason to grow it if you can't sell it, or if you're gonna store it and eat it, whatever. And so everything we plant on sequential is in a 2-week cycle for us. These cash markets for us are key to keep this place moving. I can't pay my power bill with eggplant. So I've got to have money. We've got to have cash to pay our people, our boys. You'll see a lot of kids here. We're really big on hiring young people. Here's part of our fruit trees. We've got 400 nut and fruits. It's really super hard to grow corn this low. That's poor elevations. There's a corn smut or a fungus called hulicoche, which is a Mexican delight. And we injected our corn cobs, and we're actually growing mushrooms in our corn cobs. But this thinking here is that old Three Sisters thinking that you learned in school. We use it for shade, because when we're putting in our young plants in the late summer, we don't want our babies to burn off from this heat. So we actually use the shade from the corn stalks to plant our centerpieces. You can see how it went. Now we're chopping down the corn stalks because we're past, but all of this is harvestable food. This is where regenerative agriculture comes into our world, okay? We use sheep, and the sheep are extremely hard workers for us. We love them, and they don't complain. We started with chickens and ducks. Couldn't get the chickens and ducks to turn the gardens quick enough. Then I went to goats, but the goats didn't respect the fence. They were sleeping on my car. They're everywhere. And they ate the irrigation, which is just maddening to a farmer. It's hard enough to keep the irrigation unplugged from all the liquid rock coming through the water, but then when you find big old bite holes in it halfway down, it was maddening. So a friend of ours, Hartquist Hollow, they're ranchers. They do sheep. They're the two older ones, which is Shirley and Grover. We've had them now for like 5 years. And apparently there's something wrong with those sheep. They were going to go away to Rainbow Bridge. And I said, you know, why don't you just let us keep them and we'll keep them nice and fat. And then they bring us 4 kids that are milk babies, 4 or 5 milk babies every year. They take the milk babies back and bring us new ones every season that they have babies. And as you can see, these guys are ferocious cleaners of our garden. Look at this field. This is last week. So if I get 3 or 4 of my teenagers out there, I'm looking at 25, 30 hours labor to get that done and that nice and clean. These guys, hey, just let us go. And they're fat and happy. And the ranchers, the Hartquist, love us because their animals are so well fed. And we just work these guys around all the fields as we need to turn the fields. Now we cut them loose in here. Oh my gosh, it would be a disaster for us because there's a lot of really good food in here. But that's why we like the sheep. They're very manageable with the little electric fences. There's several different ways of the regenerative theory, but this is how I've adopted it to our farm. And we love what they do, and it's easy. This is one of our big beehives. We were so intrigued with this new hive. This is called a log hive, and this is out of Germany. This has got a completely different concept of how we've done our box hives in the past. If you'll notice, it's in the shape of a log. The bees are building comb up, so it's a vertical hive, which simulates the log. And then there's a cap at the very top, which we won't put in probably until after the first year of the hive. This hive was created not for honey collection. This hive was created for continuing the species. So this is all about taking care of the species and giving them a beautiful home to build in. We're super excited about how it's insulated for the winter, but our big question now coming out of Germany is we don't know how they're going to handle the heat. This entire hive is made out of industrial hemp, and I was so excited to see an all-natural beehive. All of the big fancy beehives now that are coming out of Australia are all plastic, and you know, bees and plastic just don't work. And you can see how mellow they are. But by now they've probably built this comb up to about here, and when they get to the top there, then we'll put the cap in and have them start filling the top with their honey for their brood and everything. This type of thinking to me is just pure magic. I mean, who else has created a hive to extend the species, not creating a hive to give us more honey? I love that thinking. All right, come on down, you guys. Here's our duck pond. What we love about the duck pond is we'll suck water out of it, and it's that high nitrogen algae duck poopy water. We put it in the trailer and then we'll pump it into all of our gardens. So it's a really cool little cyclical thing that we work here with the ducks. All right, come on in, you guys. This is our fruiting chamber for mushroom. I started mushrooms probably 12, 14 years ago with the University of Arizona. Got to meet the professor of mycology. He approached me and wondering if I could sell mushrooms at a farmer's market. And I said, yeah, mushrooms in the desert? Yeah, I'm from Oregon and I can't, yeah, it's pretty unheard of. So years and years and years have passed and we've created this system that works very, very well. So it's gonna be real foggy in here, kind of a San Francisco fog. It's gonna be wet, and be careful on the floor. It's gonna be a little slippery, because we're trying to create an environment for the mushrooms. We're simulating the forest floor. We're growing all of these spores in these bags about 4 to 5 weeks before we bring them into the fruiting chamber. This is all done in the lab on the other side. And then what we'll do is we'll open these bags to the oxygen, and then we get this beautiful fungus growing out of them. This is lion's mane. You see the chestnuts growing here. These are oysters up on top. So basically we just pick the bags, and then we'll get like 3 flushes out of each one of these bags, and then we'll move these bags out and they'll go back to the compost pile. Take, of course, out of the plastic, and we'll put them in compost. And once they hit the compost pile, now they've got a whole new food area, and so then they'll keep growing in there, and then we'll break them down into our gardens. I love the thought of reusing stuff. And as a farmer, I find so much value in waste that I can use in soils and all kinds of things. And this is one of them with the mushrooms. When this box is humping, which is pretty close, now that the weather's cooling, we can do 100 pounds of fresh mushrooms a week out of here. There's certain mushrooms you can grow in an enclosed area like this, but that outdoor stuff we can't even touch. There's like a million things have to happen just perfectly on the forest floor in order for a wild mushroom to grow. So these are called cultivars, and there's probably like 20 different breeds of mushrooms that we can grow in a contained area like this. So, and if you'll notice, we've got our little barrels over here. These are ionizers. An ionizer, it's going to be probably $2,500 or $3,000, and we make it out of red barrels, a toilet float, and I buy the foggers out of Amazon. We spend about $70. That's just our way of doing things. Ultimately, I want to keep moisture in here at 90%. I want to keep the temperature at 72 degrees. So you notice we're just using wall units on each end. We don't have a full-blown compressor air conditioner, and the spores from the mushrooms are extremely caustic, so we'll burn up these air conditioners easily every year, if not sooner than that. Here's a couple of our tortoises. The big guy is a sulcata, and then I've got a little Sonoran in there. His name is Sheldon. I got him from another farmer. And then I've got another big 55-pounder in the backyard of the house. Her name is Turbo. It's amazing how well these guys get along. And of course, since we're vegetable farmers, they're in heaven. I mean, they eat a ton of microgreens and grass and everything else, and just how they live. Now, the little Sonoran is actually got an ID tag on it, and it's a special species. I was told that I'm supposed to register him and put him in my will to the state of Arizona because of his species rating. So if I die, my tortoise has a home. I have a godparent that will take responsibility because there's so many of these critters that have been just abandoned. The tortoise sanctuary has got thousands, absolute thousands of where people picked them up on pets, and they got tired of them because they live so dang long. Sheldon, they're guessing, is like 30 to 40 years old. The little guy here, his name is Tank, I think. I can't remember what he named him. So you can see how he's bobbing his head. That is actually an aggressive posture, even though he's a little dinky guy. And believe it or not, this little guy will try and mate the big guy. So he climbs up on the back and tries to do his thing, and then he just flips him over, and she goes about her way. We're getting ready for Thanksgiving. We actually started with 40 turkeys, and we're down to about 10. Turkeys are just real hard to keep alive. We actually had a couple of roosters over on the other side. They killed one of the girls. They got in a fight with her. And 3 of them ganged up on her and just beat the living daylights out of her. And she finally died. We couldn't fix her wounds. So we're trying our best to separate the boys. We grow a meat bird, which is called a Red Ranger, all male. And they are super aggressive, but they're beautiful. At about 28 weeks, they're 6 to 8 pound, tender. It's just raising them. But as a meat bird, they're great. This is 3,000 strawberry plants. So we got to get in and get all that grass pulled up and out of there before the strawberry bunches come up. A lot of this will torch, so we hit the tips and we won't hurt the plant underneath. We only use the raised micro misters in the winter. We don't use them in the summer because they just create too much grass. But in the wintertime, it's really nice. And once the strawberry canopy gets across here, it's beautiful. People love sweet, and we sell a ton of strawberries. And we'll probably get 400 or 500 pounds of strawberries, probably up to 1,000 pounds, depending on how good our weather goes. It all depends what happens if we get a freeze. Now, this isn't supposed to be happening. This is happening because of our warm weather. They're thinking it's spring, and it is not spring. Right now, our biggest worry is the grass. I'm not worried about them flowering very much. And then as soon as the cold weather hits, it'll stop them right back, and then they'll reverse their growth back down into the ground. And another thing that's super key about torching is, remember, what's the motto here at the farm?
Recycle.
Oh, you guys all failed. Feed the soil, not the plants. Feed the soil, not the plants. So we have living microbial life in the soil. If we torch it, we're going to kill the microbes on the top of the surface, our worms, all the cooties that we want in there happening to make that soil a living organism. And torching obviously will hurt that. So here's part of our butternut. Now this, for us, when we look at this, it's just like, oh my gosh, how are we going to get all that out of there until we bring the sheep in. to them, we're going to give them heaven. And just like what you saw up front, how they eat it all the way down to the dirt, and then they move on. So if I gave 3 or 4 of my kids hula hose, said, all right, we're going to tear up this garden today, how far do you think we'd get, and what do you think it'd look like? It'd be a mess. It'd be a hodgepodge, complete mess. The sheep are so clean and beautiful, and they'll do their thing. These are our summer tomatoes that we're trying to carry over into the fall. One of the biggest fallacies here in Arizona is people that do fall tomatoes, or all the people that are selling fall tomatoes for the gardeners, thinking that they're going to have a chance to grow their tomatoes. It's actually a work of art to grow a good tomato, but if you're going to grow bulk tomatoes, to get it over the summer, now is when it's hurt, and this is what nature does, this is the cycle of life in the garden. So when the plant has died, all of the bugs come in. It's like this, and that's part of the cycle of life. They're here to eat down the dead veg, and that's how it all works. So you never want to put new stuff next to old stuff that's dying, or as soon as the bugs get done here, then they're going to hop onto the new stuff, and you're going to be in really big trouble. For us, we try to get this to go over the season, which can be pretty tricky. So right now we have huge aphids in here. And again, since we're organically certified, we use a pulverized sulfur as our insecticide. And we'll run the sulfur over this, which actually helps the plants. It's part of their mineral uptake. And it knocks down the aphids. Tomatoes won't pollinate when it's over 92 degrees. So, and then also photocentric. We always forget about, most home gardeners don't realize what's going on upstairs. You know, they need so many hours of daylight in order to produce fruit. And then not only produce the fruit, you got to ripen the fruit. And if you notice, every day we're moving towards the solstice, we lose 4 minutes of daylight. So you're going to get a whole ton of green tomatoes, which is a very good market. And they might not ripen for us, but we can still sell all the green tomatoes. But if I started this whole field blank and we started with just plugs, we would never have a chance of fruiting our tomatoes. And all the people that are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars buying tomatoes at Home Depot, thinking they're gonna have tomatoes at Christmas, ain't gonna happen. Nobody wants to tell them that until they learn how to read their tomatoes. But if you can get a tomato through a season, same with a chili pepper. If you can get a chili pepper through a season, then the second year, oh my gosh, you're gonna get so much more fruit, so much more wampum in that chili pepper. Boy, you gotta just get it through its seasons if it doesn't freeze or if it doesn't cook. Now with this late summer, we're under a real gamble this year. You know, we don't know, the almanac has got us all messed up. They're talking about a freeze in February. I'm gonna guess we're gonna get one long before February here in Arizona, which to me, freezes are a blessing because it kills the bugs for spring. If we don't get a freeze, the spring is just a massacre. It's just an unending battle against the bugs, and the bugs always win. All of this is planted for winter. They'll actually go in between each one of these rows all the way down. We're gonna probably do 100, hopefully. I'm doing a sponsorship program this fall. Hopefully our neighbors that don't live here, that wanna give something to the farm, they can adopt a tree, and I'll put a metal badge with their name on it. And so year in and year out, we'll take pictures of the trees for them to see how good we did growing it. Here's our compost pile. Here is 2 weeks worth of misery, you guys. It will probably take us 2 weeks to cut all this down, get it all chipped, get it all mixed. We've got that whole mountain there to take care of. So we'll drag it all out, run it through a chipper, run it back into here. Also, we have a really nice deal with the barbecue guy up here, and we're getting all of his pecan ash. And any kind of an ash, tree wood ash, is really good. It's phosphorus for the piles. So we're putting that in here. Each one of these, this is what I used to raise catfish in, is all full of compost. So that's had a good year. We'll pick those up, grind them down, and then all of this will work its way back out into the fields, and then we'll start all over again at the end of the winter, start chopping trees down and start building again. This is still way too chunky to get into the fields. So once we start turning all this branch into chip, we'll be a whole lot better off. It gets watered every day. Yeah, not long at all. In fact, we do it at night. A couple years ago, our compost caught on fire, which was it was hell. I saw it from my house at 8:30 at night and had to get the tractor out, get the bucket on and try and drag it all out and turn it off because it gets just way too hot. You don't put out a compost fire with water. You got to just spread it all out, let it go. I'm a tree guy. The older I get, the more I like trees. So, DNA, though. Yeah, orchard crops I think are the way to go. Less care. I'm old and I'm fat, so I hate bending over to pick food. Much easier for me to get up in a ladder. Most of the trees that I put in here so far, I'll be long gone before they're in their prime. So whoever gets this place behind me, I just want to make sure I set it up perfect for them. And they're getting some really great killer food. Another nice thing about the tree crops is that those roots are breaking down that clay pot down underground, bringing up those minerals for all the vegetables here. Even if we just cleared all this out and did strictly tree crops, I'd love it. But again, I'm kind of stuck in that quandary where, we're doing 100 farm boxes a week, which is part of our sales, and I'm contracted now until March of next year, and then I'm recontracting for the following year for the same kind of commitments for food. So it's a real double-edged sword. I love the production aspect, but I got to produce and produce and produce. And if I don't, then I take the risk of losing that contract, which is good money for us. Bar none, growing food, from my point of view, is the easy part of the game. Selling the food's the hardest part. And then food safety, all the government restrictions, the state requirements, and all the silly games of being organically certified. It just goes on and on and on. And they're just slowly strangling the small farmer. And, for me, I'm just, if the apocalypse happens and I want to take care of my little community here, everybody come on over. I've got water in the well. I've got food to feed ya. Bring your guns and ammo, because, I need somebody to help me protect the place. But we'll be ready. We'll absolutely be ready to feed you. We could sleep 30 people in the barn super easy. And I'm working on solar panels now hopefully I'll have that done by next year. So the entire farm will be off grid. We'll all be solar. And with the solar and the well, we'll have it pretty much figured out.
Hire us to tell your story. As an independent team of filmmakers, we love producing documentaries for artisans of all trades, honoring skill, passion, and determination.
The fruits of our labor literally creates happiness.
Founded in 2020, we harness our collective experience and enthusiasm for storytelling to deliver content that resonates with viewers on every level.
Think big and think outside of the box.
We avoid the constant noise of clickbait news and outrage headlines, instead crafting more intimate narratives that touch on the purpose of life itself. Stories that not only inform but also inspire. Whether it's the art of agriculture, the science of fermentation, an innovative garage startup, or the intricacies of off-grid living, we're here to explore it all and invite you to join us in the discovery.
You're just working with what you have at hand instead of having unrealistic expectations.
We know the world is brimming with hidden stories waiting to be told. These are tales of ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
The biggest thing is to realize that there's nothing that you can't do.
Embodying the American spirit that with hard work, dreams really can come true. So whether you're a garage baker, homegrown mycologist, backyard farmer, or off-grid homesteader, send us a message and share your story with the world.